Ethan Hawke, welcome
Yes.
to On Film with Kevin McCarthy.
Great to be here.
Honored to be here. And so on the screen, this is a mock ticket stub. So
Obviously, yeah.
I've been collecting tickets since I was a kid.
Me too.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, and I actually just found through going through something, I found it looks very much like that. My ticket stub to the Before Sunrise premiere at Berlin. And I was so happy.
Wow.
I'm a closet collagist, and so I have drawers full of things that someday I'm going to make a collage out of.
Well,
and
I
that's
guess
going to be on it.
Why not bring this out? This is my ticket stub
Wow.
collection.
Well, you're more organized. I've just got drawers of weird postcards from people's names I don't remember.
Jeez.
Wow, look at this.
Training Day and Great Expectations.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember Great Expectations is a funny one because, well, I knew Alfonso Cuarón was going to be a big shot. He was really, really talented. But we thought that movie was going to do a lot better than it did. But then Titanic blew everything else out of the water that year.
I mean, but it's still a film people talk about. Great Expectations. And Alfonso is incredible, and we're gonna dive into all of this.
Okay, we're going to get into it all, not just the ticket stubs.
No, but this.
But I made a lot of movies. There's only 3 stubs.
I
buddy.
know.
You got to get to work.
I know. It's
Yeah.
funny because I was thinking back. And I'll dive into some reasons why as well into the show.
You're not in trouble.
No, I'm being serious. There's some really cool things I want to bring up. But this is a filmmaking show that dives into craft of directing and acting, and so I really want to pick apart kind of like process and kind of your relationship to cinematography and score and composers, everything like that. But I always start the show off by asking, I'm a big fan of seeing movies in theaters. And I remember being a kid and there was something I felt safe in movie theaters. I always loved sitting with strangers and having that communal experience. And people do that a lot with the films you've made in your career. I remember seeing Fang when I was younger. And so I'm just curious for you growing up, what were those pivotal theatrical movies that you remember seeing with your family that were important to you?
Well, I can answer that question, but I feel like I want to take the first part of your comment and say that one of the things I think that we're all a little bit reeling from, that when directors and people talk about how important it is to see things in the movie theater, it seems a little self-serving because some part of your brain goes, oh, they just want their movies to be a success and they just want to make more money. But I really think it's a longing for community. In that one of the things that has all the great benefits that have come along with the internet, there's been this erosion of our sense of community. I have a 17-year-old at home, and they had a party on Friday night, and I said, how was the party? And she said, it was so great, Dad. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, we just hung out, but you really felt like you belonged somewhere, And I was like, Clementine, that's the idea of a party. Is that you hang out with people and you're a part of something. You're a part of a community and you're not just alone. She's like, I know, and it was amazing. We talked and we danced and I was like, right. And so, you see, movies are a way, particularly in my childhood, where you have to understand, people would say, what are you doing this weekend? And you say, I'm going to the movies.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I was just going to see something that was playing, right? Because what I wanted to do was go hang out at the movie theater, maybe play some video games, maybe talk to some people, run in, and that would be a place where you would inevitably run into somebody else from your class or somebody else that you knew, and you'd go out afterwards and you would have something to talk about, how bad that movie was, how good that movie was.
Yeah. Those conversations are so key, too.
And I think a lot of my film education came from watching movies and going out with my friends afterwards, and I would talk relentlessly about how the movie could have been better. And now I should say that I was probably like 32 before I saw a movie I didn't like. I mean, I basically liked them all. And my taste was not discerning. I loved the whole event of sitting there. My mom would make fun of me every time I would see a movie. I would come back and say, that's the greatest movie I've ever seen. And I'd say it all the time. And
my dad would make fun of me for saying something similar.
Foundational ones, there's certain things that were so fun, like seeing Moonraker, the Bond film. Obviously, I could talk about my experiences watching Star Wars. I had a very middle class American cinema upbringing. I saw all the big movies. I thought, until I met Julie Delpy and Richard Linklater, I didn't really know that there were non-Hollywood movies, you know? And then my mind got blown in a whole new way, and that was really thrilling. But yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I remember, well, the ending of that movie is so phenomenal.
Yeah.
And to a 12-year-old mind, that was like Dostoevsky, that ending. I mean, it just blew, to give you something that entertaining and then end in this very poignant moment. It was so beautiful. I remember seeing Reds. I remember seeing all the Woody Allen movies. I remember for some reason, The Year of Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson played at my movie theater for a long time. And I saw it like 5 times in the movie theater. And I don't know why. I saw it at first because I thought it was going to be an action movie. It's because of the title. Yeah. And then it was something so completely unique. And Linda Hunt's performance was... so anyway, I could talk for hours about... And what I want to say about it is that movies that I watch at home... I remember that I saw them, but I don't remember when.
Yeah.
And every movie, even if it was 2 years ago that I actually saw in a movie theater, I remember its place in my life. There's a great Emerson quote, which is that I don't remember every book I've ever read, but I don't remember every meal I've ever eaten, but I know they've nourished me. You know, that they have become a part of me, and I've absorbed the imagination like you would a meal. I've absorbed the imagination and intelligence of a fellow traveler, and I carry that with me. And that's the way I feel about movies. I often don't remember what, you know, you could ask me details about Lawrence of Arabia, and I don't know if I remember what happened. I remember that Alec Guinness was amazing, and I remember certain shots, and I remember the feeling of the movie. I remember that I saw it at the movie theater with my dad at a revival house, and my dad loved to, we would drive home, and he would go, "Orange!" Just for some reason, he said that all the time after that, "Orange!"
I recently was lucky to go to the Sony lot, and I saw a 70mm presentation of Lawrence of Arabia.
Wow, hold up.
It was, I mean, we're talking about 13 reels, and this guy was changing projectors every reel.
Of course.
And I was just like, it was beautiful. It was, and I'm the same way. It's like, I remember where I saw a movie, if it was a theater, like I know I saw 2001 at Village East in 70mm. I saw, you know, Lawrence of Arabia there. I saw The Dark Knight in 70mm IMAX at the Udvar Hazy in Chantilly, Virginia. It's like, I remember those.
I remember on a more recent one, I was doing a play and I had like 3 hours in between shows. And I could walk, and I saw The Master. And I loved it because just when you think, oh, it can't be done. The good times are in the old days. It's over, it's past. There, Phil and Joaquin were doing exactly the kind of work that I've always dreamed of doing, and it didn't fill me with jealousy or envy. It filled me with, oh, so it is possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's still possible.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I've now lived long enough that I know that, you know, people, my kids and stuff, some of my kids are older, right? So 27, 23, and they're like, oh, it was back in the 90s. My son showed me the other day, like 5 movies that came out some weekend in 1994 or something, and they're all amazing. He's like, what a time. I wish we lived in that time. And I was like, wow. I remember being nonplussed that weekend, and I remember wishing it was 1974. You know, and so we're in this ongoing thing where it's really easy to be critical and negative about what's happening, because usually time is the great curator. Time will reveal what's good about what's happening right today, because it's harder for us to see it.
Yeah, you mentioned 94. That was the year. It was Shawshank, Pulp Fiction, and,
exactly.
and Forrest Gump up for Best Picture.
Yeah.
And Forrest won.
Yeah.
But
and all I'm thinking is, Before Sunrise wasn't even nominated.
That's right.
Damn.
That makes no sense. So I'm just going to use that as a bridge then, because we're going to get to Blue Moon. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Okay, please do.
Prior to booking this interview,
Yeah.
I had never seen the before films.
Really?
And I don't know.
You call yourself a film enthusiast.
I know, but I'm going to be honest because I don't want to
lie.
You
have to be honest.
But what happened was, I think the first one came out in 95, and then it was 2004, and then 2013, I think were the years. And I had missed the
Right.
95 one because I was 11.
Yes.
And then I
you're
think
forgiven.
when the sequel came out, I hadn't
You
seen.
hadn't caught up.
So there was just something. Sometimes those movies, they just pass you by.
Well,
And
I hate to quote my own work, but one of my favorite lines in Blue Moon is the great thing about art is it waits for you.
Yeah.
And those movies are there for you whenever you're ready to be interested.
well, I'll say this.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a really beautiful reason to bring that up because as I watched, I'm gonna get chills. I mean, I literally have chills right now. I watched all three of them back to back. I gave them a day in between. I watched one and then I watched the other and the other. I miss those characters so much now in my daily life. They had such an impact on me, and there was such a beauty to watching it the way I did because I couldn't wait to see where they were going to be each time I stepped into that world. I can't imagine waiting the 9 years in between that audiences had to wait for that. And I just, as somebody who just finished all three of them, I think it's a masterpiece. Every single one of those films is perfect. I wouldn't change a single thing about them. Your performances, your chemistry, that first kiss you have in the first film, like 30 minutes in, is so earned based on the conversations that you were just having prior to that moment. I felt those characters more than I have felt human beings that I've met in my life. And I just wanted to say that to you because those films obviously mean a lot to a lot of people, but I'm sure they mean a lot to you. And I'm wondering if you missed them. Do you miss them now? Do you miss those two characters?
I remember I had to go to the optometrist, and after having good vision my whole life, I need glasses. And my first thought was, oh, Jesse would have glasses in the next film. Because for 2 solid decades, it was a shadow self. It's not me. Jesse's not me. Jesse's part Rick and part Julie and part me and part our imagination. But it was like a shadow self, a place where there would be certain conversations I would have, and I would call up Rick the next day and I'd go, oh, you know what? The next film, we've got to talk about this idea. This is, and a lot of them were oriented around things that feel unique, but then upon further reflection, you realize they're developmental. That there were things that everybody who's 24 is experiencing, everyone who's 33 is experiencing, everyone who's 42 is experiencing, and it was this hunting for those little stories, the big theme of it, of course, being romantic love and the way our ideas of romantic love shift. What is romantic projection? What is reality? What is daily life? Those kind of issues of growing up. Do I miss them? Sometimes, but largely there's a great sense. I can only say there's a great sense of completion. There's something when we filmed the last scene. We didn't even really realize it until we were doing the last scene of the third film. And I think it was Julie. It was like, wow, the first movie opens with us in our early 20s listening to a couple in their 40s fight on a train.
Yeah.
And we've now slowly become that couple. And it has this sense of resolution. There's even a little joke Rick makes. The final line of it is about space-time continuum. And it's some funny, I can't remember the exact line now, but I liked it because it's midnight in ancient Greece and the stars are out. And I see Jesse and Celine just talking all through the galaxies. They're just going on through time and space. And obviously they're representative of the masculine and feminine. It's just that the masculine and feminine is just kind of relating. How are you doing? What are you doing? You're getting on my nerves. I like you. I don't like you. I don't, da.
What's interesting as an audience member, as I watched that third film and they're fighting and they're arguing, I wanted to step in the screen and say, guys, I just watched you in these other two films where you were so in love with each other, and not that you wouldn't be anymore, but I wanted to step in and say, it's going to be okay. You guys are amazing together. I didn't want you to fight. I felt like I had ownership of that in a weird way as an audience member.
But that's the thing, right? I mean, about every real couple,
Yeah.
you have seen each, if you're engaged in a long-term relationship, you can remember the person younger and you can remember what that felt like. And you can decide whether to carry that love forward with you and hold that love in the present moment, or whether you're going to get caught up in the minutia and let it fly away. I mean, it's like, it's interesting. My brain just went to, I have a friend who they were going through a divorce, and she just sent him pictures every day of them when they were falling in love.
Oh, wow.
She just wouldn't let it go. And finally, it's like, all right, you got to stop sending me these pictures. And she's like, you got to meet me for coffee. And they met for coffee and they got back together.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a nice story.
You know what actually blew my mind, and then we're going to switch gears, is the first 30 or 40 minutes of Before Midnight, I didn't know you were married, the character.
Oh, right.
And he eventually reveals it. And then I thought to myself,
you're talking about the second film.
In the second film. Yeah. I didn't know he was married because she goes to the book reading.
Right.
And he
drops that bomb.
I had no idea for the first 30 minutes, and then because I didn't look at his ring.
Yeah. Right.
And that was something I was actually interested in asking you as an actor, the idea of a wedding ring. And how a character would wear a wedding ring, and the wedding ring that they would choose. Like, you have a wedding ring on here, and that's your own wedding ring. But then a character would wear something different. Right. Can you speak about like decisions like that you make with characters and kind of how that plays into it? Because in Before Sunset, I didn't realize he was married until he drops that bomb. Yeah.
It was when I did the film Great Expectations, and the story is relevant to your question. I was 25, 26, 27 maybe. But I had grown up, like, in the dictionary next to great actor, it would be Robert De Niro, right? He was the top of the pyramid for a long time, still maybe is. But it's just, that was the definition of performing excellence. And he came onto set. And, obviously I was insecure. But he came on a set, and he spent so long deciding which tie to wear, which ring. And it wasn't frivolous. Like, what does this communicate non-verbally about a person? What does it communicate that it's silver? What does it communicate that is matching silver? Well, there's a little bit of vanity there. Is he a vain person? What does this represent? Okay, is he a Native American wannabe? Is he a cowboy? What is this? What does this mean? What's this? Or could we see it as a positive? Maybe he's a, freedom fighter. I don't know. Maybe he's just an actor who did a show with Sterling Harjo. But they say something about you, right? And they communicate something. And it was astonishing, the detail that he took in because we're so smart as creatures. We pick up, we make so many decisions about a person before they open their mouth. And then they open their mouth and make a bunch more, what kind of glasses you wear, how you do your hair, how you cut your beard, how you don't cut your beard, all the different stuff. And so that was the first time I watched that. I'd heard about that, but I saw it in action. And for a film like the Before trilogy, well, we're not going to change costumes. They're all kind of in some version of real time. So each one became extremely important. And for example, in the first one, Rick was really emphatic. I mean, I'm like wearing all my own clothes.
Oh, wow.
And he loved it. He's like, I want you to look exactly like you do look. And I was like, well, I can't wear this because it has a hole in it. What's wrong with the hole? I like that hole. That hole's cool. Like, all right, and then the second one, he's presenting a little bit more, but it's so much thought goes into it, and all of it is like a sandcastle. I can't remember why it's washed away now, but it is so fun. Yeah. It's one of the fun things about making movies is. Because when you say that thing about you miss those characters, I feel that way about good movies where I feel like I know them. I'm their friend.
Yes.
Or maybe I'm not their friend. Sometimes I go to a Knick game, And I keep thinking, is Michael Corleone going to be here? You know, like
Yeah.
Pacino's character in Godfather. I was like, oh, Godfather must be here somewhere. He'd probably come to a Knick game. He seemed so three-dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think all that stuff is really, really important. And here's the thing that sometimes it doesn't matter really whether it's a blue tie or red tie or this, but you can tell when people didn't care. You can tell that.
Yes.
And so it's always better to care.
Let's use that as a bridge because I can tell you really cared about Loren's heart and getting this role right. I think I said this to you, and I genuinely mean this is the best work you've ever done. And you disappear a lot.
Not a high bar.
No, you have.
No,
I mean, I just showed you a training day ticket.
Yeah,
okay. I think the bathtub scene is one of the greatest performances of all time. I mean,
Thank you.
You're amazing in that. But I don't see Ethan Hawke on that screen. And when I'm watching Blue Moon. And let's use that bridge from the physicality and the little details. I remember Denzel spoke about this, about putting on a character's shoes once, and he found the character by the way the shoes were. I always think of the movie Strangers on a Train, when we're introduced to those characters in Hitchcock's movies by their shoes first. So based on the way they walk, I can tell who that person is.
Yeah, it was one of my first theater directors really was obsessed with what kind of shoes, because each one of us, you know, if I walk in here wearing slippers, it's going to affect this whole interview.
Yes.
If I have boots on, it changes the way I sit. It changes so many little things. But I want to say one of the great advantages of friendship in work is longevity. Rick said to me really early on that it was absolutely essential that he not see me. He's like, I don't want to see an actor giving a performance. I'm not interested in that. I want to introduce the audience to Larry Hart. And because he had already directed me at least 8 times, so he spent years of his life editing performances of mine, you know, on a little monitor, he's seen every trick in my book, or my toolkit, or whatever the metaphor is. But he would sit there and watch my takes, and he would say, I saw you. I saw you early. That's an Ethan joke. Or sometimes he'd say, that's a Vince joke, which was a character I played in Tape. Or he would say, you know, that was a little Jake moment there. Get rid of that. You know, it's from Training Day. Or I heard a little John Brown in there. You know, get the octave up. you know, but he was on my ass, and it was absolutely, he was what you would call a nag, because he knows me so well. It was probably the least fun we ever had working together.
Yeah.
First of all, because we had 15 days, and so Rick was under a tremendous amount of pressure, and my ability to remember all that text and deliver the performance he was looking for in a timely fashion was essential in the film, you know, that you see. How, you know, at one point he said to me, I said, "Yeah, man, I really hope this works." And he said, you know what it all depends on? You. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go exactly as far as you take us, because like right now I got about, you know, I got to do around 8 pages a day, and we're not making television here, you know. So how ready are you?" You know, and I was like, Jesus, would you lay off? But that's just the way he had to be. And one of the things that is another thing about friendship is you can't take it for granted. You know, people don't want to buy a ticket to see something because we had a really nice summer because we got to spend time together. It's like we have to deliver the best that we're capable of, and we have to use our friendship to force that position. And so he could just sit there and watch. And I remember sometimes what would make me so crazy is I would do something that he'd say cut, and the crew would erupt into laughter, and you know, everyone, and I'd be like, "Oh, nailed it," and Rick would go like, "Are you done?" I was like, "What? That's too funny. That's not it. You're in the wrong key. It's like it's Larry." That was Ethan being really funny, and it's cute. Good job. But where's Larry? Like, you know, and things like, and with the screenplay too, you know, with Robert Kaplow is absolutely one of the best pieces of writing I've ever been presented.
Yeah.
And every word choice was important. The rhythm of the language is you know, it's very important. What spoils the dream of a period movie is usually it's usually mannerisms, speech there's things about language that can seem, it just seems contemporary, and you sometimes can't even pinpoint it. It just feels contemporary. You know, a lot of times you'll see a movie and somebody's like, "Wow, they don't seem like they're in whatever year it's set."
Yeah.
And so ironing out all those things, finding all the relationship the character has to speaking. Yes, there's also things like the walk. I built that walk around one idea, which was that I knew it was very strange. One of my final lines of the movie, I'm supposed to put on my jacket, and I say, I'm having such trouble with sleeves lately. You know, I have arthritis, and I don't think I said the word arthritis, but I'm like, why does he have trouble with sleeves? Oh, he has arthritis, you know, and his shoulders won't work. And I was like, all right, if I walk around like me the whole movie, and then I say I'm having such trouble with sleeves, it'll feel like a line in a movie.
Okay.
If I walk around the whole movie and it looks like his back hurts or his arms are bothering him, you know, and I told Rick this, and so I was like, you really got to make sure, like, if my shoulders are bothering me, I can't be gesticulating like a lunatic all the time, you know, like I do. Jesse does, and before I'm always like, and so I worked backwards from that and tried to develop an arthritic walk. It's something, you know, where the shoulder, I just kind of found it, and it's kind of fun. When I was a kid, you couldn't do this, you know. I had this. He's an actor, he's a musician, and he's a toy inventor. Who's a friend of mine. His name's Latham Gaines, and he did the music. He builds his own instruments. He's really a genius. And when we were starting this movie, I said to Rick, how the hell are we going to do the height? And he was like, I have no idea. All I know is we're not going to use computers. And I said, you know, the only person I know who I feel certain would make this work is Latham, because nobody really has experience with making people. I mean, people in computer stuff, you can talk about the Lord of the Rings or different things like that, but largely a lot of that is done with technology.
Right, and we're talking in the film, because you're around 6 feet tall.
Yeah,
Character you're
just
playing is
shy of
5 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had to like reduce myself, and it's an important aspect to his character because he feels like nobody's looking at him.
Right.
He feels like if he stops talking, then people are going to ignore him, and that he's not taken seriously, you know, by these morons in society. And so it was important. It's a very different kind of person. A 6 foot tall guy in a jeans jacket who comes in and talks nonstop is one thing. It's different. That's a blowhard. That's me. Larry's different than that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I knew all those things were important. Anyway, the point is, Latham came and he just, we called him the height wizard, and he started working with forced perspective. He started building sets that could raise and lower, you know, like the bar could be lower or higher depending on who's sitting at it. And you could create a forced perspective so that's actually on you know, he was doing a lot of tiny little things all the time. He's really brilliant, but we didn't have enough money, you know, to pay him or anything, so he just lived with me, and we would walk, and he would film me walking around. I would practice running my lines, but he would make me practice them walking, to try to come up with how to habitualize not using my hands and how to habitualize the walk, that when I'm Larry, because the trouble is every time you let it go, and in the course of a 12-hour shooting day, when people are in a hurry, it's really easy to drop the ball, you know, and because they're just worried about getting the shot. You know, they're not worried about whether your shoulders look arthritic or whether, you know.
So you got to be like on point.
You got to be on point.
Yeah.
And basically, Rick's thought was, well, all right, I'm going to get Latham to worry about the height. So I'm not going to worry about the height. Latham's going to be obsessed with it and make sure that when I cut this movie together, it cuts. And it's always going to be the same, that I'm not going up and down. And it's really hard if you're a famous actor, because if it was my first movie, Latham's job would have been a lot easier. People know I'm not that small.
Right.
You know it. So you're walking and going, how did you know I have a full head of hair, you know? And so it's like, okay, wait, check that out. So you got to give them 5 to 10 minutes to forget it. And it's got to be so convincing and so thorough that you just decide that you're going to buy in, you know? So you shave the head, you do the comb over, we work on the sets, you work on the walk. And then all of that has to be in the service of soul, because art without soul, it sucks.
Right.
And it's not worth your time, because all these tricks can ruin a show. You know, we've seen movies. I've had great friends give amazing performances in a bad wig, and it
ruins the whole performance. Yeah.
Now, but a good wig doesn't make the performance. Right. It's only a negative. Do you know? It has to be right. You know, and so. What was fun about it is I'm not a kid anymore, and I've got all this years of experience to draw from about what worked when we did that movie, what worked when we did that. Okay, on John Brown I learned that, on Chet Baker I learned that, on these two plays, So there's places I've picked some of these things up, whereas like on Before Sunrise I would have had no idea how to even begin the work. You mentioned Denzel and his shoes. He's meticulous like that about the ways that specifics unlock the imagination. It's an old acting adage, but specifics create dynamics. In that when it's general, when you're playing somebody who's generally tired, there's no dynamics there. You had 2 hours of sleep and you drank 8 cups of coffee and you have an eye infection. That you can play.
Yeah.
You know, just tired is boring. But specifics create dynamics.
You brought up something that I actually really wanted to dive into, which is interesting. Back to the before films for a second, because you mentioned them. But in between those movies, you worked with incredible artists.
Yeah.
And you perfected your craft more and more as the years went on. So you go between Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, you do Training Day and many other films as well. When you get to that set to do Before Sunset, after the films you made in between that and Before Sunrise, I'm imagining your acting craft is heightened and elevated, and you've worked with some phenomenal filmmakers, obviously Antoine Fuqua on Training Day.
Yeah.
Did you feel that was different for you then? And then even in between Before Sunset and Before Midnight, you worked with one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, Sidney Lumet, and Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. So in between those films, you gained knowledge and information as an actor.
Yeah.
How did that affect who you were?
And you're using the Before trilogy as a kind of barometer of those. And what was amazing about that is that's my friendship with Rick. We were growing up together. So I'm coming on for Before Sunset. I just worked with Denzel Washington. Rick wants to know all about that.
Yeah.
Right? And he just worked with Jack Black. Jack Black's brilliant. You know, like, so what's Jack Black like? So did he make up that line? Was that scripted? How'd you guys do that shot? So when he's working with those kids like that, how'd you guys do that? You know, what was the methodology? How did you rehearse with those kids? How did you do it? And so our bank account is accruing for shared knowledge. You know, on Blue Moon, you know, Rick just had recently worked with Kate Blanchett. I was like, come on, tell me what she like. How's that work? And you know, and he's the same thing. I mean, he got in a habit of calling me every day on Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, because I was like Linklater. I mean, I can't think of any. Pedro Almodovar, Sidney Lumet, and Richard Linklater are the 3 directors I've worked with that cannot get enough rehearsal. And so Rick loves to hear those stories about, because, you know, a lot of filmmakers don't love rehearsal.
Sidney's famous for rehearsal.
Oh my God!
Have you read his book, Making Movies?
Of course I have.
One of the greatest books of all time.
And for those people watching, you know, this, the reason it's a great book is it's extremely practical.
Yes.
And it doesn't, you know, a lot of books about art are like, and then I had this dream, this vision, and you know, and then the spirit moved me. And Sidney would be like, yeah, all that's well and good. What did you do to get ready for the spirit to be there?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he's a very practical man about what work effort you are in charge of. That what are the little things you can do to help create an environment where success is possible. In a collective medium like this, like a film, it has to do, whether a film is successful or not, has to do with how it's promoted. As the older you get, you start to see the interconnectivity of the music and to the cinematography, to the editing. We're in this dance. You're not alone. So much has to do. I mentioned, we made a really nice movie with great expectations, but, if you come out the week after Titanic, nobody gives a shit, So it's like, there's so much that's just not, they're just not up to you.
Right.
You don't control, and you're never gonna control it. But the fun is being a part of it and learning. And Rick and I, through what's valuable at a 30-year working relationship, is we can build on what each other learned. And Sydney was just so, and Rick is a very practical man too, and so Rick loves whenever so I would call him every day after rehearsal. And in fact, he used some of that against me on Blue Moon.
Really?
Yeah, because
From Before the Devil Knows You're Dead?
Yeah, because I used to tell him stories about how Sydney would provoke Phil and I.
Oh, to get you going.
Yeah, he
Okay.
wasn't like your best friend, Sydney.
Yeah.
He was really nice when the movie came out.
Sure.
I remember once being critical of the script. I was like, Sydney, I don't really think I think this would be good if we cut this, And Sydney goes, oh, so you think I'm a complete idiot? No, I just think this scene. Oh, so you're in charge. You think that I'm going to watch the finished film and the scene sucks, and I'll go, oh, I didn't notice that. Thank God you're here, or I wouldn't have noticed. I mean, where were you in all my other films? I mean, I guess And he would get super aggressive, about basically your job is to help me make my movie, not to He was like, trust me, if the scene is not good, I will cut it out. Your job is to make the scene good, so make it good. What's Now, in my own defense, he did cut the scene out, just so you know. But he would provoke Phil and I all the time. He would tell stories about, that nothing. His whole career was like working with Marlon Brando. Oh, Marlon. Oh, Phil and I was just like, it's just. And I realized when I finished Blue Moon that I should have never told Rick any of those stories because
I don't know. Your performance is pretty damn good in the movie.
Yeah,
maybe it
exactly.
Works. Maybe
so there
it
you
works.
go.
Yeah.
So maybe it worked.
Yeah.
Because he was much more of a, like a good athletic coach.
A little bit bullying, a little bit.
No, more of that's the best you can do.
Okay.
Is that as deep as it goes?
So he's because he knows you can do better.
He's finding the wall. He's hunting for the wall. And that's what we kind of felt like when I remember at the wrap party, we both felt like, well, the target on this movie is so small. It would be so easy for it to not work. It's set in one room. It's real time. And there's so many reasons why somebody might not want to see this movie. And we're not fools. We know that. It has to be really well executed for anybody to have the patience to watch this movie. And he and I both felt like we kind of bumped up against the wall of our talent. Yeah, a more talented person might make a better film here, but this is as good as we can do it. And that's scary place. It's like singing your highest note.
Yeah.
I actually can't go higher than this.
Oh, interesting. You don't think you can get better than you are in this film?
Not that particular genre.
Interesting.
I mean, you don't know. Better is such a weird word, right? It's like sometimes what was exciting for me about this is I don't think anybody else in the world would have cast me in this. There are parts I'll get cast in, I hope, that'll be easier for me. And you might hopefully think they're better. You might enjoy that film more. But this is like, wow, man, I'm dying. I'm an alcoholic. I'm gay and I'm in love with a woman. I'm incredibly vain and being humiliated. I'm, this guy is a collection of opposites.
Yeah, it's like oxymoron.
He is the smallest person in the room and the biggest person in the room. There wasn't one thing I could play where the opposite wasn't also true. And it's actually like... I made this Paul Newman doc, and Paul Newman would talk about it, is that it's the correlation of opposites. That like an extremely overweight person who's extremely graceful is magnificent to look at, And I forget, he had this theory about opposites create this thing that we call watchability. it's a balance. Yeah. Something has to be teetering. Something's about to fall off balance. You can't take your eyes off it. And, Brando's a great example of that because he was so masculine and so feminine. Yeah. And so there was this correlation of opposites that was happening.
It was intriguing. Like you wanted to figure it out.
What is going on with you?
Yeah.
So Larry had that. And that's a very... But, one of the things I love about working with Rick is he's really unshowy. He doesn't want... He's allergic to plot, and he's allergic to drama, like too much gas, fiery, showboaty performances aren't interesting to him. It has to be penetrating and soulful and true and not draw attention to you, the director or the actor, but draw attention to Larry. That's what I remember when I was doing the press junket with Sidney Lumet, since you like it, I'll tell you that. And he would be very critical of some of people's favorite movies. And he would say, a lot of contemporary young directors, he would say, well, that would be a great film if the title of the movie was the director's name. Because all I'm doing is watching the movie thinking, isn't he brilliant? And he goes, I like movies where you think about the characters.
Yeah.
And so I try to be invisible.
And he was.
And he was.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that brings me to a question of why I started this show. I want to dive into the craft of your relationship to the people who work on your films, specifically cinematographers and composers. But I remember, and this came about when I was reading Making Movies by Sidney Lumet, and there's a chapter in there about 12 Angry Men. And he talks about the lenses that he used in that room for the jurors. And as the film started, the camera's above eye level. Then it becomes at eye level, then it goes below eye level. And the lenses change because it makes you feel claustrophobic. Yeah. It's a completely subconscious thing that we're feeling.
It's awesome.
Builds the tension. It's brilliant. Yeah. But then I look at films that you've made, the DPs that you've worked with, and those decisions that are made. You look at every oneer in the Before trilogy. Ones where you're walking, ones where you're driving, ones where you're on a bus. And these are brilliantly executed shots that you have to be aware of in sense of like when you're walking with Julie's character, like you have to know your mark and you're in a 6-7 minute wonder. There's one, I think it's in Before Midnight, where there's kids are sleeping in the back of the car.
Yeah, it's 14 minutes long,
wake up.
17 minutes long, something like that.
It's one of the greatest shots I've ever seen.
Well, okay, in that shot specifically, I think it's like either 14 or 17 minutes. It was really long.
It's incredible.
And the kids have to be pretending to be asleep while the parents are talking. And because our thing when we were first starting to write that, Rick was like, none of us just chit-chat like we did when we were younger.
Right.
And Rick said something like, the only time that I really chit-chat like that with my partner is when the kids are asleep. And the car's like, then we can just kind of, I'm like, let's do that. Let's open the thing. Kids will be asleep in the back and we'll just kind of yammer on. But the trouble with a 17-minute take with two kids pretending to be asleep, while I'm doing that take, we're talking and talking, and when I get, because a lot of takes we didn't get that far.
And you're in a biscuit rig, I'm assuming, right? Someone's driving your car for you, or you're not really driving, are you?
I'm driving.
You're literally driving?
I'm driving. There's a car leading me in front, so I don't have to worry that much about it.
Oh, it's so cool.
But I do, and we're in Greece, and I mean, some takes are ruined by somebody driving by going, fuck you, because we're slowing the traffic down. And but the funniest thing about that take is when we get to about the 15-minute mark, I would go, okay, this take is damn close to being perfect. I don't want to blow it now, but I don't want these kids to miss their cue. And so underneath the camera, I'm reaching my arm back and I'm just kind of gently tapping.
You're joking.
I'm tapping the girl's ankle, and she kicked me. She's like, okay, she's awake. And I come back in. It's like, all right, good. Because I didn't want, I knew that take was gold. And so, there were a lot of, but what makes Rick's cinematography so masterful to me is how invisible it is.
Feels natural.
And that he's not drawing attention to the characters, he's drawing attention. I mean, he's not drawing attention to the camera, he's drawing attention to the characters.
Yes.
That camera, like in those walk and talks, they are so simple. One of the best Steadicam operators in the world is Jim McConkie. He and his brother are both brilliant, but there's a shot in Before Sunset where we're on the street and you go into a cafe, and then we sit down into a 2-shot where we proceed to talk for 7 minutes. That's the hardest shot. like
'Cause the
Jim's-
lighting
yeah,
changes.
Jim's done shots where he's going in and out of cars and up on helicopters, but to actually just float invisible and then stay invisible and stay steady, to go from a moving shot to what is basically a set shot, you know, and have it feel right. I mean, what's hard about we're doing that scene and there's just sweat pouring off of his shoulder, and we have to be flirty and in love, and what the whole human being in you wants to go, buddy, you okay? You need a glass of water. But no, he was brilliant, and then, you know, I've also done different kinds of wonders where they are flashy and dynamic, and a different sense of dynamics.
What comes to mind for that?
Well, Chivo and Alfonso Cuarón, Emmanuel Lubetsky, who I did Reality Bites with and Great Expectations with, and they were incredible to watch work. I mean, now you have to understand they hadn't. At this point, they have like 19 Oscars on their shelves or whatever. But at this point, this is their first like real American movie.
Yeah.
And but I knew that they were lightning in a bottle.
Do you know how many times I've studied The Wonder and Children of Men when we're in the car with Julianne and Chiwetel, and the actors were ducking out of the way as the cameras. I mean, Chivo is. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I just had to bring that up because he's one of the best.
Well, I feel honored because I knew how special he was. You know, we were both young.
Yeah.
On Reality Bites, we were young. That I don't.
Ben Stiller directed that, which is incredible.
Well, and see, Ben, what's so fun about growing up is like Ben Stiller's turned into one of the great American voices.
Agreed.
You know,
Walter Mitty's incredible.
It's incredible. The Cable Guy's brilliant.
Yeah.
Tropic Thunder is genius.
Yeah.
Escape from Dannemora is amazing. Severance is astonishing. I told Ben the other day, it's like. He's turned into the Mike Nichols of my generation.
I agree 100%.
And
yes,
it's amazing to watch. And Ben was the guy who found Chivo. Like he's like
really,
you know, like that was the first time. That was, I might be wrong, but I think that was it was certainly one of Emmanuel Lubezki's first American films.
Yeah.
And then I worked with them right away again on Great Expectations, and they paint on set. You know, they really, and that was the first time I learned about the use of color, you know, and the ways that Alfonso uses color. And you can see it in Godard films, you see it in Wim Wenders films, where there's the camera's doing it. You know, sometimes there'll be a shot in Wim Wenders movie and every car's orange.
Yeah.
So weird. You're like, wait, why is, you don't really notice it, but does have an impact in your imagination. It takes a normal circumstance and makes it the stuff of myth.
Heightens it.
Yeah. And I remember I used to make fun of Alfonso mercilessly while we're shooting that movie. Why is everybody wearing green? This is so stupid. Oh, I bet. Well, I'll have menthol cigarettes. Of course I will. You know, but it works.
Yeah.
The movie has a mood and a tone, and it's not real life.
Yeah.
It's an Alfonso Cuarón film. And, you know, Almodovar is the same way. You know, Almodovar, if the color behind you is wrong, you're going to reshoot that scene, you know? And, you know, I've also worked with Pavel Pawlikowski, who is, his relationship to the frame is very different than anybody I remember I had to do a scene, I don't think Pavel Mami says, I had to do a scene for him in which I have to walk through Paris, fall down in the middle of a street and sob because I've lost my daughter. And I have to like sob, and I'm working, and I fall down, and I'm just sobbing. And he says, "Cut." And I'm like, "How was he?" He goes, "Oh, you were fine. We need a triangle. There's no it's all squares." You know, and he starts talking like, and he, you know, wanted a triangle to be in the center of the frame. And all right, let's go again.
Let's go again.
Great, dude. I'll just cry about my dead child again. Well, next time we'll have a hexagon. But you see his movies, and they're not like anybody else's.
I know. There's a reason to the madness.
Yeah. So it's part of what's beautiful and wonderful about movies is they need a vision, and they're collective.
Yeah.
So it's really, really complicated.
I got a million things I want to get to. I know we don't have a lot of time, but there's a line in Blue Moon where you say, "I have written a handful of words that are going to cheat death."
Yeah.
That brings me to a question I love to ask, because have you seen the movie Babylon?
Of course.
Okay.
No, I have not.
With Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Brilliant film. But there's a scene in that film, and I love asking this question because I think it's fascinating, because there's a scene in the film where Brad Pitt's character basically, like, we're in the era where movies are going from silent era to talkies, and Gene Smart plays this like journalist who's essentially writing an article about like the death of Brad Pitt's career in a way, and they're talking in this scene, and she's trying to comfort him, and she says essentially to him, in 100 years, someone's going to turn on one of your movies, and you're going to flicker back to life. And it gives me chills because it's this genius idea of being immortalized in cinema. Just like Larry is immortalized in music and the world of what he was able to bring, you're bringing him back to life. What does that mean to you in the concept of, like, once you're gone, not to be dark, but once you're gone, like, that someone will bring you back to life? It's a character, but you're still going to come back to life. And do you think about what story you've told in your filmography that will be left behind?
My honest thought is that will be their story. It won't be mine. Mine will be gone. And we are such stuff as dreams are made of, you know, that we're here for a passing moment, and it's beautiful, and it's enough. That we don't need a miracle to walk on water, right? It's a miracle to walk. It's wonderful to be here with you. It's wonderful to see how much you care about movies. And it's wonderful to put all these little secrets in movies and think that there's friends out there that are going to find them and see them. And it makes my life worth living right now. And I don't, you know, somebody says, here's this expression, I'll remember it as long as I live. And I was thinking, no, you won't. You won't. You're going to forget your kids' names. You know, you're not going to remember it as long as you live. And you certainly, you know, if you die too soon, maybe you will. But everything is passing, even our memories, is what my point is. You know, and so it's the living of it that is so essential. And I love being here with you and talking and celebrate movies. And yeah, there's certain things that I fantasize about contributing, but I don't. It amuses me to imagine what Larry Hart would think about this movie. But in truth, it's not really how. Like, in truth, this is Richard Linklater's movie, and this is his moment in time and our moment who've made this movie. And we're talking about what Larry Hart means to us right now, then. And it's not going to help sober Larry Hart up. It's not going to help him write one more song. It's not going to help him find someone to say, I love you. You know, will you hold my hand? You know, it might help somebody else value those things, you know, and so on the cosmic dance of it. But so I try not to let myself think like that too much. I do find it amazing when you do like a Shakespeare play and you tell a joke that's 432 years old or whatever, however old those plays are, and you make an audience laugh with a line that's been making people laugh for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And you almost, when you're the performer and you feel this audience laugh, it's almost like you can picture a laughter through time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, whoa!
That joke is hitting hundreds of years later.
Like in a stadium where they do the wave. It's like this joke is waving through mankind. And, you know, my great-great-great-grandparents might have laughed at that joke, you know? And then, so in that way, it's not that I don't think these things are valuable. I'm not sitting here saying, like, all is lost. I'm saying, like, all I really understand is my effort. And, like, I felt that we were in Ireland making this movie, and one of the things that was so daunting and scary about it is like, okay, I got these 15 days to put my money where my mouth is. You know, I sit there and I do these talk shows, and I go on podcasts, and I talk to my kids, and I talk to my friends, and I talk about how much this job means to me and stuff like that. And I got 15 days to show it. You know, and that is terrifying, exciting, thrilling. and it gives me pause and makes me happy to be here with you talking about it, because if you're going to do it, I want to talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and but so I don't know if that's a good answer to your question.
No, it's a great answer because a couple months ago, or weeks ago, I was doing a Q&A and Macaulay Culkin was there. We were doing this.
Wow.
It was this John Candy documentary that Ryan Reynolds had just produced.
Wow.
And Macaulay was on stage talking about how he's now showing his kids Home Alone. And it gives me this interesting thing because you're seeing Macaulay is, 8 or 9 years old in those movies, and his kids are now watching their dad at that age. And I think it's got to be similar for you because I remember seeing you in White Fang when I was a kid, and you have footage of yourself at a younger age.
That's incredible.
Is that interesting for your kids to see?
Do you know what? So
you?
I'm in. I don't know how well you remember that movie, but I'm in basically every frame of that.
Yes, I remember. It was the first movie I ever saw you in.
I put that movie on for my kids, and we're sitting there in the basement, and we're watching the movie, and we're about an hour into it. Right.
And you're how old when you're making that movie? 14?
19.
Oh, you're 19.
I might have turned 19 on it, yeah. It was
Wow.
the year I turned 18 on Dead Poets Society and 19 on White Fang. Wow. And I said, how you guys liking it? I said, it's good. When are you coming on?
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't know it was you. That's crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
That is
And you know
wild.
what's funny? The person who's in that movie more greatly resembles them than me.
Right.
I mean, they look like that young man in that movie. I don't.
Huh.
And then you start to get out these really deep thoughts. You're like, oh, wow, I probably look like someone else.
Yeah.
I bet my grandmother watched that movie and thought, wow, he looks just like Howard. And now I'm thinking, oh, wow, that guy in that movie looks just like Levon.
Wow.
And like, so none of us look like ourselves. I mean, we do, but we don't. We're part of something else.
Like, I would love to see my dad at that age. Like, I've never. I mean, I've seen pictures, but like to see moving video. I know you're playing a character, but that's got to be like. When you were having kids, did you realize? Okay, I'm going to show them these films at this time. Like, how do you?
No, dude, I was thinking about making love. I wasn't thinking these deep thoughts. I was thinking, boy, she's pretty. No, you don't think like that. I it's weird now. I have the thing about, I remember seeing somebody ask Gene Hackman whether he watched his own work, and he said he never watches them, and he had a kind of fantastic answer about it. Acting is just this ancient profession, but only for the last like 70, 80 years have people been able to watch their own work.
Yeah.
That's a very new idea that we're living in. And now I'm somebody that was in his first movie at 14 years old, and I'm watching my whole lifetime, and it's a strange thing most people don't have to experience. It's not entirely pleasurable,
I would imagine it's tough.
Yeah.
It's got to be because you see yourself essentially at that age, but playing a character. But I guess this is a question I often think is interesting to ask too. The artist you were before you became a dad, and the artist you are after becoming a dad, I have to imagine there's a distinct line there because I don't have kids, but the emotional connection that a father has to their kids, do you see a distinction between who you were as an actor before and after?
I don't know. It's a nice thing to say if I said yes, but it feels good to say it. I know so many people who have children who are some of the least empathetic people I've ever witnessed in my life. So the idea of having children is this kind of great compassion creator. And there's a lot of people out there in this world who don't have children who are unbelievably compassionate. Yeah. And being a parent sometimes makes people incredibly selfish. They see their children as this extension of themselves. I had a cab driver the other day say, the best thing about my son? I was like, what? He looks just like me. Oh, God, that's the best thing about your son. I mean, but you hear that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'd like to think I have tried to use the experience of being a parent to let go of myself.
Does that get dangerous to you?
How so?
I know some actors talk about sometimes like if they tap into real life to get emotion in a scene, it could be a dangerous thing because then you unlock something.
Well, I try to think. I don't think about it like that. I think about Mark Rylance once gave me some great advice about letting things pass through you and not holding on to them. And that the only way you're going to really go to be able to, as a performer, to go through the great highs and lows. This is Mark Rylance. He's done all the great roles, multiple times, and the only way, the unbelievable tragedy of the malevolence of a character like Macbeth and the transcendent beauty and elegiac wisdom of a character like Hamlet. Like, if you're going to go through all that, you have to not try to own those feelings. You have to try to witness them and experience them and invite them in and let them pass through you and not hold on to them. We all feel dreams so powerful. How many of us have woken up with your heart racing? Our imagination is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, people can will themselves to heal.
Yeah.
I mean, people are amazing what we can do with the power of thought, and so you can imagine, if you focus, a lot of things that are profound, and you don't need to let them unlock some terrible demon inside you. You're nothing's going to change that. It's our psyches can get confused and get twisted.
Yeah.
But you can untwist it.
You mentioned Ben Stiller. I was interviewing Ben Stiller for Severance, and one of the things I asked him and Adam was this idea of severance in the sense of like the metaphor of what that would mean for when you leave a set and you go home at the end of the day, like as an actor. So when you're on set and you're playing this character, you then sever from that and you go home as Ethan Hawke. So you're on set filming a bathtub scene in Training Day as Jake.
The shotgun in your mouth.
Yeah, and then you go home as Ethan Hawke. And he was talking about this idea that as an actor, your body doesn't know you're acting. You're still putting yourself through the emotional state. And that to me is interesting because you're still having to go there emotionally, even though it's not you. And I was wondering if you can speak to, let's use the Training Day scene as an example. Like, do you remember going home that day after that scene and kind of like, is there a severance between that and who you are, or not that your method, but is there any type of like way that how does that distinction happen for you?
Well, you bring up that with great difficulty.
Yeah.
I was younger then. That was really hard. That particular thing that you're talking about.
It's the scene that I think about the most when I think of that film.
Yeah, but it was a very fine actor that I was doing the scene with, and it's really hard to speak about, like, because I don't want to. I like being like Sidney Lumet, but I was a young father, and I don't even want to talk about it.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't need to be sorry. You should be sorry. That was one of the first times I experienced not being able to let things go.
Oh, wow.
And that was a complicated. It was a great experience, the making of that movie, and that was a terrifying scene to do and to really imagine doing. I remember Denzel came by that set today, and he was watching for a little while, and he went, "Damn it, why am I not in the best scene in this movie?" But what I'm trying to say, something that could be helpful to you about it, is that you really try to unlock these things. And what Ben was saying to you about severance and how your body doesn't know, it's like it really doesn't. And that's what's dangerous for young actors with kissing and these things. Why you have to be with punching and kissing. Your body doesn't know that this wasn't a kiss,
right?
And your body doesn't, and that's why I like intimacy coordinators and stuff. You have a stunt coordinator. You don't really punch the guy. Why do you have to really kiss them? You don't. And you can make incredibly erotic art and keep everybody safe, and you really can do it. And it just takes respect of the individual and communication. You can really do that. But when I was younger, I was really that scene was. I just remember going home and feeling like somebody tried to kill me.
Wow.
Like your nervous system is shaking. And you do. And one thing I love about science fiction, why I think Severance is so brilliant, is we all it's a meditation on compartmentalizing.
100%.
Right? It's like we all do that.
100%.
And that's how some people justify extramarital affairs. It's how some like that's in this part of my brain and in this part of my we all do that. And I think a healthy human being has air and oxygen in all those places. And I don't but I think the severance metaphor is incredibly profound. And it wasn't until I was really good friends with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I knew he was coming to see me in this play where I had to play a guy committing suicide, and I had to talk to the audience. And I had this line where I'd say, I want to put I can't remember the caliber pistol, but I want to put a 38 in my mouth and pull the trigger was the line. And I was like, I knew Phil texted me, he said, hey, I'm coming on Wednesday. And I was like, okay, he's coming on Wednesday. And I could hear him in the previous performance, I could hear him saying, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I was like, why? So why don't I believe myself? And I started reading William Styron and Sylvia Plath, and I started reading all this stuff about people, about depression, and about, what it takes to get to the place where when you wake up in the morning, you see the sunrise and you think, go to hell. And you see flowers, you think, oh, they're ugly. When you hear kids laughing, you think, shut up. Like what? And so I start training my brain to think like that.
Wow.
Right? Like I'm doing that all the time. And Mark Rylance came to see the show, and he had seen the first run through, and he'd been really enthusiastic. And he came backstage late in the run, and he was like, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't know. It's going pretty good, I think." He goes, "It's going very badly." And I was like, maybe he didn't say that exactly, but that was the feeling. He said, "I'm worried about you." And I was like, I think I'm really getting somewhere. And he's like, you're getting somewhere. It's no longer enjoyable to watch.
Oh.
You're not performing anymore. You're not showing me why this is. I'm worried. I'm not worried about the character. I'm worried about you, the actor. Your voice sounds like shit. You look like shit. You don't seem in control of what you're doing. It's extremely watchable. This is not good. This is self-cutting.
Wow.
You've teetered into the thing. And then he was very helpful at giving some things about how, what I said earlier about letting things pass through and inviting it in and inviting it out and creating a healthy, not a severance, but a healthy wind that's blowing through all of it, because the severance that I was trying to do doesn't work.
Wow. I have so many things I want to follow up on. I know we have to get out of here soon. Can I ask you two more quick questions before we go? I brought up the relationship to cinematography. I want to talk about your relationship to film score.
Yeah.
You've been set
one of my favorite elements of it.
Me too. And I think score is, to me, it's a leading character in a lot of your films. It's something that it affects tone, it affects range, everything. You've been set to some of the best scores of all time. And I know some directors, they'll have some of that score. Sometimes, like I know PTA, for example, had some of the Johnny Greenwood score from one battle after another when they did dailies. But generally speaking, you don't have that music until you see the final cut of it. As you look back at your career and the scores that you've been set to, first part of this question is, what is your emotional relationship to seeing your performances set to music and what it does for the work you did on that day?
Interesting question. I've never been asked. Well, first of all, a great director, you haven't heard the score, but you know what it's going to be.
Interesting.
You do.
Does it usually match up with what you thought?
Yeah, because they're a good captain, and so they're guiding all the departments: acting, set, costume, music. We're all getting the same direction. We're like fingers on a fist, right? And when it works together, like Godfather's a great example. You don't separate performance from costume, from music, from cinematography. It's just the Corleone family.
Yes.
It's one movie, and you don't even think about all these things. That's great filmmaking. Peter Weir. When we built the set for the classroom on Dead Poets Society, he put there's a bookcase in the back wall, and it's all speakers. And he would crank Morricone, he would crank Beethoven, he would crank it. And it was the mood. Wow. And the finished score, Maurice Jarre, the finished score sounded very much like that. I mean, it wasn't Beethoven, obviously, but it was the same feeling we had on set. And for example, Blue Moon was all scored by the there's a character who's playing
Knuckles.
Knuckles. He's playing the piano during the whole party. So I knew in rehearsal, Rick was like, this whole movie is going to have no score. It's going to be scored by this piano. And so we were listening to we had this constant playlist of what would he be playing in 1943. He'd play a few Rodgers and Hart songs because he knows they're there, but he wouldn't do too much. He would do a lot of Gershwin. He'd do a lot, Cole Porter like that. A lot. So we would be listening. You kind of knew, and you would think about, what would be the right song for the piano player to be playing in this scene? And we would talk about it. And that would be really fun because music is the best communicator of mood.
Agreed.
If I put on the Rolling Stones right now, we'd be in one mood. If I put on Phoebe Bridgers, we'd be in a different mood. You put it's just, and you immediately tap into that heartbeat, that pulse. So, Michael Nyman on Gattaca, he makes that movie.
Yeah.
But Andrew Niccol had that vision of what this futuristic, what the future was going to feel like, and we were all swimming in the same water. But it's an astonishing score. And when I started directing, the first thing I directed as a movie was, I'm not suggesting you watch it, but it's a movie called Chelsea Walls that came out. We did it right after I saw The Celebration. The DV camera had just happened, and it was like all the rules changed.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you could make a movie for $100,000.
Yeah.
It didn't look particularly good, but you could do it. And I had this idea of, well, all right, the one thing that could be the same is the sound. Because sound is never that expensive. And the score, what if we had the most brilliant score? And I'm really proud, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco did the score.
Oh, wow.
And he, the best thing about that movie is his work, is the score that's kind of holding all these digital, it's basically a toy camera now.
Yeah.
But it was an exciting moment to be alive.
It's funny when I look at something like No Country for Old Men, for example. There's no score, and I think about those performances, and there's no music, and I think what the Coen Brothers are doing there. Sometimes no score can be
that's the case in
right?
Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Yes.
One of the things that Sidney did. The guy who did that. Oh, forgive me. He's really famous. He's a great contemporary composer, and Sidney and he, they just restraint.
Yes.
Restraint. When you use music, use it well, but let it sit in real life silence.
Yeah. Favorite film score of all time?
My favorite. I'd be lying. Two pop immediately to my head. One is The Mission, the Morricone soundtrack. It's just it just makes me cry.
Yeah.
And the other one is a cheat, but is The Sting, which is all Scott Joplin music, and that idea to use Joplin for that whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's just, whenever the trailer of that movie, any scene comes up and you hear that ragtime going, it's so the mise en scene of the movie,
Movie you wish you could rewatch again for the first time?
Movie I wish I could watch again for the first.
Memory is gone. You don't.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Why One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? That's such a phenomenal film.
Well, the reason I thought is it's the first thing that pops in my. Jack Nicholson's performance in it is just it's like candy to me. It's delicious, and the ending is so powerful.
Yeah.
And what it's about, and what it means. Those drums and the chief running into the woods with the broken window. It's like, I would love to be able to absorb that for the first time, not knowing it was going to happen.
Yes.
I just would love to know what it would feel like as an adult to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much for this conversation. I had 30 other questions I could have asked you.
Well, I had a cup of coffee and I couldn't shut up. So
dude, no, I wanted to go because there's so many scenes I wanted to bring up. I love that scene with E.B. White when you walk up to him and you're just geeking out. And one of my questions was going to be who have you done that with that you've walked up to? If I could ask that real quick, because I love that scene.
I've geeked out to Sam Shepard for sure.
Oh, it's so cool.
I talked to him at the urinal.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I called Linklater after it was over. I said, I went up to him at the urinal, Rick. What the fuck's wrong with me? And Rick said, wow, you're pissing in the tall grass with the big dogs.
Dude,
Thank you.
We'll end on that note. Thank you so much, Ethan. This has been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, you're wonderful. You're wonderful.
Thank you, man. Let's do this again sometime.